Thank you everyone for joining. One thing, I want to thank the organizers for, for arranging this. And if you do not know, those of you are listening, uh, you can also donate a little bit, any amount you want to this for the cause. This money goes to feeding some small children. They live in the slum. So you'll be surprised that how much it can do, with your small contribution. Like if you do a $10, I was reading it can feed small children for almost a month, and they actually have a package. If you, I think it's $39 or $40. They actually even send you a couple of gifts, which is not probably the reason for donate, but what the organizers did is amazing, right? I speak a lot of conferences, for different reasons, but this one is something really, with everything going on in the world, that we can, make some change. A little bit of our contribution can make a change. So let's move on. We really do not have, about 40 minutes. So one thing I want to make clear, that I have all of these things in demo, but if I'm sure we run out because this is a 75-minute session. I compressed it to 50. Now I only have 40 minutes. So everything is already loaded into my GitHub repo. I just refreshed it like a half an hour ago. So if I do not get through the full demo, I'll give you my contact. Please reach out to me. I put enough comments that you should be able to run through those. And if you have to change any variables, any values, I made enough note there. And if you run into any issues, please reach out to me, and I'll make sure that I'll work with you one-on-one to get you through the demo. So I'm not going to talk more about myself. That intro video was enough. But please take a note of my contacts on the left side. You can contact me my Twitter, LinkedIn. My website has a contact page. Everything works. So just reach out to me. So why I picked up this topic? This is a real life scenario, true, that happened in one of the Microsoft data center in January 2019. 16 hour 11 minutes. Some of the databases are down. So ask yourself this question: that how many of you who are running some resources in Azure, and our talk is primarily on Azure SQL Database, but even if you're running Azure SQL on VM, hyperscale Azure SQL managed instance, ask yourself this question: can you afford a downtime of 16 hour 11 minutes? Now, if the answer is no, then this talk is for you. And you might not have a resource today, right? Your company is probably prepping up. You're looking, down the road to move some of your resources from on-prem to cloud. Can be for many reasons, right? I don't know. It's depending on your business. Or if you're consulting, you definitely want to know this. So there are two terms that we always talk about, and I'm not going to go into details. RTO, RPO. Anytime you talk about business continuity, disaster recovery, I would highly encourage you to agree on these two times with your business owners before you really come up with a solution. Because unless you know exactly those times, your solution doesn't make any sense. Because as a data professional, it's not our job to decide those two times, right? Those depend on the business owners and how much money they want to afford, or how much money they're willing to spend to implement those. Because as you reduce this time, you have to spend more money. And it's true on-prem. It's also true in cloud. And you will see as we go further. Now, there's a new term called ERT, estimated recovery time. You want to get comfortable with this term also, ERT. And ERT is basically, we're talking about your maximum ERT is RTO. And why I say maximum ERT, because yes, your estimated recovery time will vary, because now before you are on-prem, so you have control on many things, right? How you set up your stuff, with your ISP providers and other stuff. But in cloud, you're kind of dependent on some of the SLAs that Microsoft is dictating for you, right? So you need to let your business owners know about those and then make a decision. So this is, if some of you are new to these terms, I just put a graph just for you to visualize what I mean by RPO, RTO. And I'm not going to spend time on this one. You can look at this later on. Now, this slide is really not directly not related to our topic that we're going to talk about, but all the features that I'm going to talk about, everything is not available in every SKU that you deploy your Azure SQL database. So as you see at the top is a DTU and vCore. Those are your purchase model. And then you have your service tier, basic, standard, premium, general purpose, and all those. You have your compute tier, because you can have provisioned or you can have serverless. And under those, even you have some hardware type. You have Gen 5, DC series, M series, and again, I'm not going to talk about those in details. You can go and read about those. But just so you know that some of the features that I'll talk about, you might not see in some of the SKUs, because Microsoft did decided not to have those available in every SKU. Just so you know. Now I mentioned about D2 and vCore. I want to just briefly mention this. Microsoft's recommended model is vCore. D2 was released first, and D2 means database transaction unit. It's an abstract unit where your compute, storage, IO, everything is combined, right? So and you call it a DTU. But when you go to vCore model, those are not abstract. So you can know exactly how many CPUs you are getting, how much memory you are getting, and what the IO throughput based on the on the storage you are getting. You have a guaranteed SLA on all those things. And please pop your questions on the chat. I'm watching it. Also, Simon can stop me anytime, because the goal is not to rush through this. The goal for you to get something out of this talk. So if I'm going too fast or if something not clear, please um, you know put your questions there in the chat. So these are some of the features that are available for us in Azure SQL Database to do some of the recovery during a disaster, high availability, or if you lost some data or someone made a mistake, you want to roll back, right? So temporal tables enable you to restore row versions from any point in time. Now, it's all configurable. I'm not going to go into details, and this feature also available on premise. So this is nothing exclusive to Azure SQL Database, but I still wanted to mention it. Automated backup is a totally new concept, because whenever we used to set up a SQL Server and a SQL database, we had to set up our backup solution, right? But here, we do not have to do anything. But still, you need to know, because there are certain things you need to configure. For example, how many days of point in time backups you want to keep, and also about your long-term retention. So I will talk about those. As soon as you deploy a Azure SQL database, you automatically get some built-in HADR solution comes with it, and it varies depending on which SKU you are deploying. It will vary what you get, and we'll talk about those. There's also zone redundancy. So if your database is just living in a zone, so in Azure they have multiple zones right now. Just to give an example, where I live, East US is a region, East US 2 is a region, and I'm sure wherever you are from the world, you're probably familiar with other regions. But within a region, there are also multiple data centers. So there's something called zone redundant, means you still you'll still have an issue if there is an issue across the zone. But if one of the data center within the zone have some issue, you can have zone redundancy. Means you can have independent cooling, compute, power, and all those within the data center. So, and I will talk about this. Active Geo Replication is something that similar to using always on availability group feature that we are used to on premise. So now you get zone redundancy. So you can have data flowing from one zone to another zone, and it's keeping in sync with asynchronous though. And then you have auto failover group, because active geo replication is set up as a database level. But if you do have multiple databases that you want to fail over at the same time because of the application consistency with your database, you can create failover groups. So this is pretty similar to what we have on premise today, always on availability group. So exactly same thing. You can group multiple databases. So these are a couple of things, and I'll probably talk about four of those today. No, five. I'll just skip the temporal table. This is what I was talking about at the beginning, that you need to know these times, right? This RTO and RPO, and I'm not going to read the slide. I just want you to know, before you propose a solution, you go to the business owners, you want to know these times and show them, hey, can your business tolerate a 12-hour of recovery time? If they say no, then you say, okay, just depending on the backups is not available for you, so we need to look at something else. Can you sustain an hour of auto failover groups? No, then we probably have to do a manual failover. Right? So you want to look at those, and these, some of these are going to cost you more money, as I said before, uh, compared to other solutions. So let's talk about automated backup. As I said, as soon as you deploy Azure SQL Database, behind the scene, Microsoft will start taking backups for you. I put a first bullet point, might be a surprising statement, like, right? Lose control of precise RPO. Why do I say that? When I have a database at on-premise, I can take a backup at exactly precise hour, minute, second that I want. I can have a precise interval for my transaction log backup if my database is in a full recovery model. In cloud, for Azure SQL, you do not have a control on on recovery model. Everything is on full recovery because that's how Microsoft can guarantee your SLA that they are providing us. Now, how frequently is based on the performance level and an amount of the database activity, right? Now, why do I say that you lose control of precise RPO? If you read this statement and copy it from Microsoft documentation or books online, we used to call, it says generally created every 12 hours, generally created every 5-10 minutes. And that word, that generally means, it's not a precise time that I can control or you can control, right? So that goes away. Again, it's the same concept that I'm saying. It's not precise, right? It depending on between 5 and 10 minutes. So you just want to be aware of that. Your point in time backup retention, it's by default is 7 days. You can increase up to 35 days. Again, you will be paying more, except if you are in a basic tier, you cannot increase it. It's only up to 7 days. Every other tier, you can go up to 35 days. There's long-term retention. So, I work for an investment management firm. Keeping a 35 days point in time is not enough. In US, they call it Security Exchange Commission. They can come and tell us that, hey, we want to check that trade from 3 years ago, right? So either I have to keep this database data in my database, or I have to fetch it from a backup. So Microsoft allow you to put your backups for up to 10 years. And they are also geo-redundant, means they automatically get copied to another zone. So if the whole East US to go down or everything gets destroyed, your backup is still saved in a different region. Mahesh has a question. How does automatic backup impact the cost if you have a large database? Do you need separate storage for backup? No, you do not need to provision any storage or anything. Doesn't matter how big is your database. You only say what you want. Behind the scene, Microsoft will go and assign resources whatever you need. Like I said, as soon as you deploy, doesn't matter how big it is, you automatically get 7 days point in time backup. Means your full diff and all your transaction logs will be saved for 7 days. You can slide that. We'll see it in the demo up to 35 days. And then you can go and set up your long-term retention for up to 10 years. Of course, anything beyond the default, you're going to pay for it. based on your size, and like you said, you have a big database, but you do not need to go and fetch storage or have a storage account and all that. Microsoft will do that for you. Uh, I'm not going to read this slide, but I put it for your info, because you can have many different kind of combinations or permutation and combination for your long-term retention. Someone might say, I want to keep my every weekly backup. Someone might say, no, I just need the first, I just need my monthly backups to keep for, and someone might say, no, for my business, I just need the, my 16th weekly backup keep for 10 years. So you have all these combinations you can do. These are a couple of examples that you can go through, and you can set this up. And if we have time, we'll see this in the demo. What you can do with your backups, as I said, you can do point in time, or you can bring your long-term retention backups, and you can also go to a different region and you can restore it there. So a new database on the same logical server in a different server in a different region. One thing you cannot do, and it's obvious, it's also same as on-prem. Give you a real life example. Had a deployment, and Steve was talking about the why source control, CI/CD pipeline, why not deploy manually, right? Steve was just talking before me, and this is again important, that a deployment issue, right? They did something mistake by deployed some wrong code. They come and say, hey, we deployed something at 5:25 Eastern time. Can we go back to 5:15, right? Now they want the same server because they don't want to change the connection string, all that. So what's your option? You go and rename the existing database, and then you deploy, you restore it with the with the original name. And once they're happy, you drop the old one. You cannot have the two databases with the same name, which is obvious. As I said, you cannot avoid an existing one. One thing to remember, if you delete a database, so like you have 7 days, right? Point in time. I delete a database right now. I still have 7 days to recover the database because my backup is there. Now, or if I have a long-term, backup. But if you delete a server, you cannot restore, you cannot recover a database. So just to keep that in mind. This is a question I get a lot. Can we restore on-prem? Not directly, but there are other options. I just put this. Please go and take a look. If you Google this, you will find solution. If you need help with any particular one, reach out to me and I can give you more details. Built-in HADR. So this is, and we'll say it in action, this is just deploying a Azure SQL database without doing anything. In this 3-tier basic, standard, and general purpose, what happened is pretty much, if you know what is a failover cluster instance, because you have one set of storage, but you have multiple compute. So this is the same thing. You get spare node capacity within the same region, maybe in a different data center, but you have data and log files that get replicated, and you have, if you see in this picture on the right side, Azure Premium Storage, local redundant, and your backup are always geo redundant. Now, if something happened to the active one, to the primary replica, what it will do, it will reserve a compute from another host, and then it will attach those data and log files, and you are in the business. This is a little bit slow because you are paying less compared to premium and business critical. Premium and business critical, it's modeled on based on always an availability group. So your data and log file actually have multiple copies. So you have 4 copies of each of your data file and log file, right? And again, your backup files are same as we are talking about. Now with this, what happened is, before you get a acknowledgement back when you make a call to SQL Server, at least one of those secondaries must sync before you get the commit. So as soon as you have a problem with your primary, it just failing over to the secondary that's already in sync, and you're in business. So you all get this by default, right? Also, you have a read scale out from these replicas. Means you can send out your read-only traffic to the secondaries without paying any extra. if you are into the business and premium and business critical tier. I know read only feature is not nothing to do with your high availability solution that you're talking about, but I still want to mention this that you can take advantage of it. Zone redundancy. I talked about it a little bit briefly. So this is within a region, independent power cooling network, and again, this is let's move to the next slide. It will make more sense. In general purpose, this is still in public preview. I want you to take a note. For general purpose, if you want to turn this feature, you have to turn it on yourself, and you're going to be paying additional cost. Also within general purpose, if you go back to my first, the third or fourth slide, I showed that you can get different kind of hardwares. You only get this if you get Gen 5 compute. So keep that in mind. Compared to that, if you're in premium and business critical, you're not paying anything extra for this. This comes with automatically for you. Now, again, only in Gen 5, you can turn this off. It's up to you. Because as soon as you turn it on, keep that in mind that your network latency will increase, because now it's going to do a synchronous replication to keep everything in sync. So you have to be careful with this. It is not available in managed instance. Again, if you're I know I'm primarily talking about Azure SQL Database, but people are using managed instance a lot. Alvaro, you asked a question, are backups verifying? If I have to take a guess, and I'm taking a pure guess, I'll say yes. But if you do not, if you please send me a note, because I do not have your contact. I will research and I'll make sure that I confirm you. But if I'm putting my money now, I'll put it answer as a yes, that Microsoft will be verifying the backups. Active Geo Replication. So again, it's leveraging always on availability group. There are a couple of things that I want to mention here. You get up to 4 secondaries in different region. Your secondaries can be used for read-only traffic, and they can be behind. Just keep that in mind, because they are asynchronous replication, right? But they're transactionally consistent. So what does that mean? So I'm sending my read-only traffic, say to one of the hosts. I got disconnected. I reconnect again, and I did not get reconnected to that one because that one had an issue, right? Now I got my read-only traffic is going to one of the other of those 4 secondary nodes. Now the other one might be a little bit more behind, so right, I might not see that same transaction, but I would not see a half-baked transactions. That's guaranteed. Now you might say that I'm losing my hair for data loss, right? So as a good steward of data, you are worried about your data, right? So even though this is set up this way, now you have an important transaction that you definitely want to make sure that it is in sync to the secondaries before you send the acknowledgement. So you can use this with your transaction to guarantee that. But remember, it comes with a caveat, right? Because now you are forcing the synchronization. So it's going to impact your performance because it blocks the calling thread unless all committed transactions are replicated. So keep that in mind. You have to use it carefully, but you can use it. And if you go to books online, in Microsoft documentation, there are detailed examples how you can use it. Auto failover groups. So as I said before, we talked about let me go back a little bit. Active Geo Replication. Active Geo Replication is still at a database level. Now, if you have a couple of databases sitting in Azure SQL Server, which is a logical concept, that you always want to make sure that they are failing over at the same time, then you can create auto failover groups. but a condition that your database still have to get replicated to a different region or a different server, and then you can set up auto failover groups. Again, this picture kind of gives you a visual how it works. One good point is you get two connection strings. As soon as you set this up, you get one for your read-write traffic, and you get one for your read-only traffic. And when you fail over or fail back, you do not have to change your connection strings. Your listener endpoints remain unchanged, which is pretty nice. But you cannot set failover groups. When you set it up, you can only set it up between two servers, whereas your active geo replication you can set up to four. So just keep that in mind. And uh, I have a slide next to this. No, this is showing you that you get two endpoints, right? So your connection string is actually based on your failover group name. So your connection string has no concept what's your host name or your database name, server name. Sorry, your database name, not your server name. So you just put your failover group name. So whichever is a primary, it will automatically detect and it will go there. So you are doing failover, failback, and no change on your connection strings. This is a chart that I think will be helpful because there are a bunch of differences. I wouldn't say differences. I would say like feature parities, right? Between auto failover groups and geo replication. So I created this small chart just so you know what you get and what you don't get with each one. And I'm not going to read this. This will come with the slide deck. Also, it's in my GitHub repo. You can download. We talked about a lot of asynchronous replication. So this is sometime you might get a question if you're processing huge amount of data and people have applications that are reading from the secondaries, right? I have at my current workplace, because it's an investment management firm, we crunch terabytes of data, right, to give insight for our portfolio managers, what to buy, what to sell, what to do, what not to do, right? So they are looking at all kind of stuff. Giving an example, right? US had election a few days ago, and so they go back and look at all previous elections, right? Okay, if this scenario, this party wins, what happened to stock market and whatnot. Now, in doing those, they'll have a lot of things. They just do it on the read-only replicas. But if you have a huge amount of data you're processing on the read-write, they might be all backed up, right? And they always looking at a bit. If that bit, they can see it change from 0 to 1 on the read only side, then they submit their query because they know that it's still behind. So if you want to know, this is a T-SQL that I think I just copied it from books online that can give you some status like how far your secondaries are back or your read-only replica is back from your primary. So that's it. I kind of rushed through it. So I still have 14 minutes. It's a good position to be in. So I want to show you a couple of things in action that I talked about. And before I go there, I put a bunch of resources. These are all hyperlinks. I know this is a big topic. You read through those. Again, take a note of my contact. And again, I know I'm rushing through, and so please reach out to me if you need help. So let me push my. So some of you may be wondering, I had this demo previously totally on PowerShell, and I used to use Visual Studio Code. So I switched it to a notebook, which is in Azure Data Studio. If you are not familiar with notebook, do not get hung up with this, like, oh, what I'm going to do with these demo scripts. What a notebook gives me is I can put comments, URLs, my code, and the result, and I can save it, right? That's the beauty. So if you do not like it, you can just copy these things and run it. You still don't like it, you just want to get a PowerShell version, let me know. I will get that to you. So in the interest of time, I already set up a bunch of things. So I ran all this already. As you can see, the output is there. I just ran it like 2 hours ago, just so you do not have to sit and watch. And I have a bold statement where the demo starts. So demo starts here. Now, it will not be fair to show you this demo unless I show you, what I did with this demo code, right? So I created a resource group. Uh, you always create a resource group. That saves you a lot of pain when you go to delete, because after this demo, I'm going to delete everything because I do not want to pay the money that I don't need to. I created 3 Azure SQL Server. In Azure SQL, this is not a quote unquote server that we know on premise. These are just shells. And one is a primary and secondary to show you active Geo Replication. In my secondary server, there is no database. It's just a shell sitting there. We'll use it later on. As you can see, there's no resource. In my primary server, I do have a database that is a sample from AdventureWorks. We're going to use this to set up Geo Replication. I also have a read scale out. I just want to show you that if you see that I put it in a business critical tier. I don't know if I have oh, good. So I didn't realize that, this is too small. So as you see, this is in business critical. That way I can show you that the read scale feature is built in and comes with it. Okay. So this is what was created from this demo script. So let's look at a few things. Hopefully, great. Now I say that the long-term retention, the point in time comes built in, right? I mentioned that a few times. As you see that, if you see my demo code, there's nowhere I set up any backup. I only deployed this database, right? And if we go to backup retention now, it's 7 days, right? I know it's too small probably. So it's 7 days. And if you go to this drop down, as I said, you can slide it up to 35 days. Make sense? Now there is no long-term retention setup. And we can look at this, right? I can run this, and all I'm saying, give me the long-term retention for this database, and it says, everything is 0. Now I'm setting up, and what I'm setting up, I'm saying my weekly retentions for 12 weeks. So rolling, keep my weekly backups for 12 weeks. But if it's the 16th week of the year, keep it for 5 years. Why I choose this, I don't know, just for demo purpose. You talk to your business owners, talk to your legal, whatever they need, set it up that way, right? Now, once this is running, let's go back to portal again. We should see that now here, as you can see here. So let's go here. Right? Weekly backups, 12, 16th week, 5 year. And I did not provision any storage, nothing. Azure is going to, Microsoft is going to do it for me. I do not have to do anything. I can see these policies. If you don't like GUI, you can run this. I'm not going to run it, just trying to save some time. If you want to remove it, you can run this. This is going to remove your long-term retention. Now I talked about built-in HADR. As you saw there, on my primary database, I only had one database, right? I did not set up any active Geo Replication or anything. So if you have watched, who was talking about OSTress? I think Frank, I don't remember, Frank or Tracy was showing oyster. I think Frank was showing oysters 2 sessions ago. So this is a tool. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to, connect to my primary server and just do a select, right? Nothing fancy here. And then we'll do a failover. It's going to ask me for my password because I didn't want to put it in the script. So, and then you'll see that, it's doing a select, right? Now, I'm invoking a failover. And I do not see a second server or anything in the portal. Now, this one is going to take a little bit longer time because this is not a, as you see that we are getting failure now, right? Because it says it's not available. And then you'll see that it will connect and it start running my select statements again. Now, this is not in a premium tier, as you see that, right? It's done. It's failed over, automatic. I didn't deploy anything. If you do this in the business critical tier, you will see that this will happen a lot faster. And I know that I'm not going to, run this for, just for saving some time. Now, on the primary server, I'm setting up an active Geo Replication to the secondary server. And I put my database name. These are all variable driven, so you just do it at the top, and then you don't have to mention this again. So let's run this. Now, while this is setting up, let's go and try to see what's happening on the portal. We are setting this up for this database, right? You should see that right here, So it's good that we caught it in the, oh, no. It's sitting right now, right? So it's sending the whole database to the central US, to my secondary server, and with the same database name, right? It created the database and syncing it. Once this is done, we can do a planned failover. So this is done right now. Now we are failing over to the secondary. So let's go to portal. And we should see that our primary and secondary server name should be reversed. I mean, I know the commands work. It's just, some of you might not be, familiar with this, so I'm still showing you this. So as you can see, right, you notice that it flipped. Now the primary is in central US, even, as you see the server name, and my secondary is in the primary server. The command hasn't finished yet, but we could see it over there. It just, okay. I'm just going to fail back for the next demo. Simon, should we continue or try to wrap up? You tell me. Because it's 5:48, I don't want to, overstep the times that you have. Okay. So look at a failover group, unless I hear from Simon.
Taib, we can continue for 5 or more minutes. It's okay.
Okay, great. Okay, thanks. Yeah, 5 minutes should do it. So failover group, you can create a failover group, but not have any database. You do not have to have a database when you create a failover group. So let's create a failover group. It's empty, and let's go and look at it. And whenever you're looking at a failover group, we won't be looking at it from a database level, right? We need to look at it from a server level, because we can bundle bunch of bunch of databases. So as you see, we just created it, failover group. That's the name. And right now we do not have any database. Right? Database count 0 of 1 means you have one database that's eligible, but you do not have one right now. That's all it is saying to us. Now we're going to add this database into our failover group. And if we refresh this, as you can see here, and I'm supposed to, in my notes, I say to myself, we can go and connect to this, and I can show you the server name, but just in the interest of time, I'm not going to do that. So this one will relate to primary, and secondary.database.windows.net will, oops, sorry, I shouldn't have, it will just, connect to this. It's obvious. And we can do a failover. We can do a force failover. We can remove database, add database, everything from GUI. But just to keep it consistent, I'm just going to use this. So now we are, doing a failover, and we should be able to see it here. It did not, so it's still taking some time. Yeah, it's done. As you see now, right? And the beauty of this is, like as I said a few times, your connection is string, you do not have to do anything. And if you want to know in your failover group, who is sitting where, what's the status, you can just, this command is not doing anything, just get, it's a get command. It will tell you, what is my failover group, what database, where is my primary, where is my secondary, and all that. So I'm just going to leave this here. The last thing quickly I want to show you, the read scale out, right? And if you remember, we have this one database in the portal. I named it obviously with read scale out server. This is not a part of any failover group. We haven't set up any active Geo Replication or anything with this one, right? Just standalone. But even with the standalone, I get multiple copies, and I have read-only servers that I can send my read-only traffic. Just to prove my point, I want to make sure Windows.net, so if I use this, yeah, now I have to really connect to this again. And we should go to the database, this one, connect. Now here I did not say my, again it's read only, so I probably have this saved. So let me show you this something. Anyway, so if you have this turned on, read only, it will take you to a secondary server in your connection string. If you are in those tiers, you automatically get this. And if you do not have this mentioned, or you can have read write, but it's by default read write, it will take you to the to your read write node. Um, so that's all I have. I'm going to get back to my slide again. Oops, it's probably switched the displays. Okay. Uh, so I thank you everyone, for attending. I know it was a long day for some of you, especially of course for the organizers. It's a 2-day last session, but I'm really honored, humble. I know that I can join this cause.